Behind the Shades.
But I've learned that it's not about comparison. It's not. I do feel sad that my child can't walk, can't talk, can't, hold something. It's such basic things that I'm longing for her. And sometimes it can get overwhelming. This has been a decade of learning what overwhelm feels like, learning what disempowerment feels like, and learning that I can choose to live in this disempowered state. It's always going to be there for me. But if I live in that state every minute of every day, then what's the point of being here?
Did you think when you heard the news of your daughter and she had the heart concerns, and then you bring her to the hospital and this happens, what was some of the thoughts that was going through your mind when you look back today and say that I went through something where someone made a comment about me? I went through something where someone made a comment about my son. Now I am going through this with my daughter. What were your thoughts when you looked at all three of those situations?
Honestly, I've never really put them next to each other and said, all of a sudden the other two sort of fade out in terms of how hard they are to deal with. I'm like, okay, those two are just what some uneducated or uneducable person, I don't know, what somebody in their own darkness said. That's just their judgment. I look now at those things and I realize that I could have let those things break me or keep me stuck or brainwash me into believing it too, right? Because to a large extent, that's what I think racism is. I think it's brainwashing. I think it's that somebody told you this and taught you to think like this, and you've adopted it. Because I grew up being told by some people that I had to feel that way about people who didn't look or behave like me in my own country. And I remember really rejecting that. And I think every little child rejects that automatically. We've seen those little reels and so on with children of opposite, different races running to each other to hug each other, right? So I don't think it is our natural state. I think it is a learned belief. And I think it is hard to unlearn, but I don't think it's difficult. It's impossible to unlearn. I do think that we have to wake ourselves up and say, is there any validity to this? Do I choose to believe this? I teach students now at the university and I tell them they are our future. And we see racism in our country. And I tell them, you're sitting here looking at me, and I've had students tell me, because of my race, they're sure that I would treat certain people better than others, or I'd mark people better than others. That's for you to decide. But I know that I'm being as fair as I can. And what I want my students to realize is that you're hindering your own self when you put up these roadblocks to our development as a country, as a region, as a world. So calling them on it and telling them, I want you all to notice these things that are happening. And I want you all to decide, is this the world you want for your child? Your child who doesn't exist yet, because you are shaping the world they're going to live in with your attitudes and your behaviors. So I now see the things that were said to me and my son as a gift to me. Because if I'd never been told them, and if I'd never felt that feeling of being crushed by somebody else's judgment and being told you're not good enough in all these ways, I wouldn't have known how debilitating it can be to your spirit. And how bitter you can become. Because until I was in my 30s, I carried so much resentment toward that person. Real resentment. Now that person hasn't changed, but I have. I no longer need to set a place at my table every day for that person. Because that person is living their life and never remembering me, but every day I'm suffering because I remember their hurt of me.
Was it something, Marcia, where you look at the boys, the girls that you help, you look at your students, every time you see their faces and you see them struggling, do you see a little bit of your childhood in them that fuels you to make sure that they have a better time growing up and they don't experience some of the things that you experience, or better yet, they don't have that person that's going to tell them, you need to change your nose, you need to change your eyes, you're not going to be good looking, no one's going to like you. Yeah. Do you see that in your kids as well?
I do, Tareen. When I start my semester and I introduce myself, I introduce myself as, I'm an engineer teaching you in social sciences. How in heaven's name have I shown up to teach you in a place where I don't belong, right? And I then tell them, here's who I am. I grew up in a little village in front of the forest next to a river. It's really important that I tell my students this. I want them to know that who you have in front of you is a really, really simple country girl with a PhD and an engineering degree, right? I want them to know that they're not going to feel that I'm somewhere up here while they are down here. I'm not ever going to talk down to them. So the next part of the introduction is talking to them about the concept of customers and service to customers, that I actually am the servant and they are the customer. I'm the teacher and the teacher is providing a service to them. They have a duty to show up for class and to do certain things, but I also have a duty and I'm accountable to them to give them good value and service and care. Even though they're grown men and women, I do feel that part of my job is to care. And that came out of, I don't think when I was younger, I always felt safe. I don't think when I was younger, I always felt beloved and accepted. And I don't want somebody else to feel that if I have any control over it.